Hey everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the very warm reception that Tank Duel is receiving. I really appreciate it very much. What I wanted to do today is to make a little video on a couple of things that people have been asking me about and I've been seeing people play wrong. And it's basically how the card decks work and what cards go in what deck and a little bit of infantry stuff. So to start off with, a game of Tank Duel is played with cards from the battle deck, and at the back side it'll say, battle cards on it. Your deck that you're playing with should be numbered 1 to 100. There should be no duplicate cards in there, so there shouldn't be two number 60s. So when you form your deck, make sure it's between 1 and 100. Now in the base game, the non-historical scenarios, we've got 5 of them that use the base terrain cards that come in the battle deck. And then we've got these alternate cards. There are 13 and 71 through 77. These cards have battle numbers on them. So when you want to put a minefield in the game, you would take out card 13 from the main deck and place this card into it. Now the difference here is the cards that come that do not say alternative on it, they don't have anything at the bottom for the terrain. So there's a woods, there's no alternate card there. So that's card 71. Here's card 71, which would be a hill. So you could take the woods out and put a hill in. The cards that are in this deck have pretty good terrain. If you would like a more wide open game, you put these cards in. Some hills, some brush with only cover 5, and field with no cover. So if you want a more wide open killing game, you put these cards in and take these cards out, the terrain cards. There'll be a lot of woods, and gully cards. So those are the only cards that go into this main deck. So it's these cards and the originals. What I'm seeing is people putting these city cards into this deck. That is incorrect. I will get into that in just a second. Those are only used for scenario 6. Then we have these hill cards. These hill cards and these road cards, they are special scenario cards that can be added to your tank board, but they never go into the game. And this hill card is different than that hill card. And the fact that it doesn't have the numbers and it never goes back into the deck. And there are special rules for these. There's 7 of them in the game, backside are roads. Then we have these solo move cards. They say solo down here at the bottom. They're just holding places when you're playing against Robata. Robata will move without actually using move cards. So to signify that they're in motion, this goes on their tank board, so they're moving. Now let's get to scenario 6. When you want to play scenario 6, you take the entire deck of city cards. It says city at the bottom. The ones with numbers, not these up here, they don't have any numbers. Everyone that has a number that says city, you replace each one of those numbers for the same ones in here. So all of the terrain deck cards in the original deck will come out and the city cards will go in. Now you've turned an open field covering lots of distance into a city fight. This city square is a special scenario card. There are special rules and they work just like the hill card in the hill scenario. that you'll get to place. And then you have city corners, which are city street, which is the default. You would place this down on your tank board. Rather than being an open field, you're on a city street. So they cover up the default on your tank board. Now, anytime one of these red numbers are to be used, so for instance, people are wondering why there are two bog numbers. Bog 30, bog 50. When you move and you play one move card, you use the lower number. If you play two move cards, you're going faster, you're not as careful, you use the second number. If you are in motion and an enemy plays a card on you, so let's say the enemy were to put you into a city street, he played a card that would put you there, then, so let's say he dropped you onto a street corner. You just use the smaller number, not the larger, because he's playing one terrain card on you. You're actually not moving. You actually didn't play a move card to do that. So that's how the city cards work here. Now the last thing that will go, well, there's one over here, and there's a bridge card that's used. Again, it doesn't go in the deck for the bridgehead scenario. Now let's go over infantry really fast. The way infantry works in the game, there are two infantry cards. Some people have been asking me, why are there two? And they don't understand why there's two of these. What they are is for ease of on the table. If only a couple, like 4 of you are playing, you can get away with using just one card, okay? But if there's a big table of 8, these cards can be spread out on each side so everybody can see what's going on as far as the infantry. The way that the infantry works is you use these counters. You also use infantry cards. There are 2 types. There's anti-infantry close combat and then city anti-infantry close combat. This is used for all scenarios. The one that says city is used for that city deck when you do the city fight. Russians and Germans are identical. They have the same, name up here. Numbers will be different for each group. The way that infantry works is you must play a card that has this symbol on it to be able to either move your infantry or fire with your infantry. If the card only has the Russian insignia on it, only the Russians can use this card. This card can be used by either side, Russian or German. So let's go over moving the card. Everybody starts at 0 with your infantry. If, say, the Germans were to play this card, they could place their infantry marker on the 200, which means that they're making some progress getting into enemy territory. And I do the identical on the other card if you're using 2 cards. So then let's say later on the Russians take a turn. They play an infantry. Well, since the Germans are on, the Russians would move the Germans back to 0. So let's say the Germans are here and the Russians play an infantry. They would move them back to 200. Okay? So that's how movement works back and forth. And if they're at 0 and the Russians go again, they get to place theirs on. And it's a push them back and forth type of mechanic. So once that you've gotten a position that you want to take a shot, it's very simple. You have the infantry range. Where's the infantry at? If it's here, it's at 0, 200, 400, 600, 0, 2, 4. wherever that infantry is, and then where's the enemy? The enemy is either at 0, 2, 4, or 6 on his range box on his tank. Cross-reference the two numbers, and that's your chance to hit. Now you can use the enemy's terrain against him. So think of it this way. If an infantry is out in the open, there's no cover for them to hide behind, they're going to have a more difficult opportunity to hit the enemy tank, rather than if that enemy tank was in a bunch of cover that they could also use to sneak up on it and get into a good firing range. People have been talking about, well, I want to shoot at the infantry. That has all been calculated in the chance to hit. So the way to look at this is, if the shot is a miss, that means that the tank's anti-infantry weaponry got to them and took them out before they could actually get the shot off. For the very last thing here is, when they do hit, you have different types of weapons that they can use. You could always go hand to hand if you want to, or you're either firing a Panzer Schreck or a Faust for the Germans, and then it's hand-to-hand ATR or an M1 bazooka for the Russians. And you just read the card and do it. I hope that kind of clarifies infantry for you a little bit and how to set up the cards. Again, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the game.